Why not, eh? Got an old friend back tonight with an update. It's ex-captain, Navy officer Leonard Lawrence. On the screen, you'll see misdiagnosed and drugged. The story of Leonard. He was an airline pilot, of course, and toxic fumes made him ill. He was misdiagnosed with something else, and there was acid strip. So, Len, you're back again. We've got an update on toxic airplanes, and we've got updates on your case. Well, little updates at least.
Thank you, Andy. Let's go back right to the beginning when I first met yourself and Kevin Ball, the Earth Needs Rebels show. And we talked about toxic fumes on aircraft. Now, this must be going back to when? About 2009? It was a
long time ago because he's been dead for 10 years plus.
Yeah, and anyway, I got poisoned by toxic fumes on aircraft, and I was told I was mentally ill. I was medicated whilst held by the government legal services in the United Kingdom, and basically thrown on the streets like many other veterans. Anyway, last week we've had a major breakthrough. The Wall Street Journal, which is a premier publication in the United States, I'll repeat it again, the Wall Street Journal, have been researching the effects of toxic fumes on aircraft. And they have, I think, recorded over a million fume events. Anyway, Andy's put it on the screen now. And you can, if you start doing these Google searches, you will find everything you need to know about it. But it is a major, major problem, particularly apparently on the Airbus A320. My fume events occurred on the British Aerospace 125, the British Aerospace 146, and the Boeing 757-767. And what actually happened, I got certified without a medical by a private psychiatrist, Dr. Rice from Signet Healthcare, when an NHS psychiatrist said my cognition was grossly intact. And what happened, I got placed under the government legal services, the official solicitor High Court. I then got medicated until I lost mental capacity on psychiatric drugs, and for more than a year I was incapable of legal discussion and understanding. Where I should have been protected, I was afforded no protection by the government legal services, the official solicitor of the High Court, and barristers, particularly barrister Dominic Brazil, who at the time was at 1 King's Bench Walk Chambers, who acted for my wife. My wife instigated divorce proceedings, and basically I lost almost all what I had. Never expected to make a recovery. I was very fortunate that the British Airline Pilots Association, BALPA, at that time, referred me to the United Kingdom Civil Aviation Authority, and I was then directed to Wing Commander Professor Gordon Turnbull, who was the psychiatric advisor to the United Kingdom Civil Aviation Authority. Anyway, Professor Turnbull took me under my care. The government legal services were not happy about this, and nor were many others. Anyway, he stopped all medication. I immediately regained my capacity. And Professor Turnbull then signed a certificate. It's known as a Court of Protection Medical Certificate, CP2, to release me from the Mental Health Act. That was in February 2006. But the official solicitor of the High Court and his office never disclosed these Court of Protection certificates to the Court of Protection, and they have and are making all clinical decisions without the knowledge of the Court of Protection. So people get certified, then once they're placed under the government legal, no one can go near you, and you get totally asset stripped. And in early 2022, Detective Inspector, Detective Superintendent and a PC started to sniff about what happened to me. And very, very quickly, they were removed from their investigation following a finding against Chief Superintendent Claire Arms, who was the head of operational support at Avon and Somerset Police. She's now left and she's gone to Warwickshire Police as an assistant chief constable. Anyway, they had a finding against her for the obstruction of justice in my case, covering up the events which had happened to me. The Detective Inspector, Detective Superintendent had no further investigation. The IOPC Southwest returned the findings back to Avon and Somerset Police without informing me. Then the next thing, on the 30th of March 2022, my house gets raided by Avon and Somerset Police. I am arrested on allegations of malicious communication. My home was searched, my computer seized, my mobile phone seized. Then I was taken to Bridgewater Police Custody Centre. But Avon and Somerset Police knew that I hadn't been sending malicious communications. But what happened in that police station on that day, the 30th of March 2022, was just incredible. Unless you've actually experienced it, then very few people will know what occurs inside a police station, and importantly, inside a police custody unit. Now, what I didn't know, I've now been told that the Wall Street Journal had been doing research into me about what had happened, looking at my background with these toxic fumes. And the American Aircrow had actually told the Wall Street Journal about me. Anyway, I get arrested and I'm taken to Avon and Somerset Police, Bridgewater Police Custody Centre. And who was in charge of criminal investigations and police custody? Chief Superintendent Claire Arms, head of operational support, the very officer who had just been found, had a finding made against her for the obstruction of justice in my case. It was never the intention of Avon and Somerset Police to take me down the criminal justice route. The intention was to have me certified under the Mental Health Act. And did they attack me? So what happens, because of this brain injury, I have a carer, and she accompanied me to the police station, which they weren't happy about. And I was signed in at the custody desk, and I handed over a Headway brain injury identity card. These cards are not easy to obtain. You have to have a diagnosis from a recognized professional, a consultant neurologist, or a neurological hospital. I had both. Anyway, I was taken to a custody cell at Bridgewater and placed in the custody cell. The door was left open, but it was guarded like police, guarded by police, and my carer was in the cell with me, and it was all very strange, the whole atmosphere. Then what occurred, about maybe half an hour later, I was taken to the medical room, which was manned by G4S. But ultimately, the Chief Constable, Sarah Crew, has vicarious responsibility for what occurs within her police force. So I entered the medical room, escorted by a woman police constable, Alana Snow, who had overseen my arrest and the search of my home. And I would not engage with the nurse or anyone else in that room. I was fingerprinted, I was DNA tested, and I requested a doctor, but the nurse would not give me access to a doctor. And I have specialist medication prescribed by a professor of immunology at Derriford Hospital in Plymouth. And I wasn't initially given access to that medication as well, which prevents the loss of my airway. Anyway, I was in the room about 10 minutes. Then I was taken back to the cell. Now, that nurse completed a medical report. Her name is Nurse M. Bell, employed by G4S. And she wrote on that medical report that I was fit to be questioned, fit to be taken away. But what was interesting, having now obtained that medical report, the nurse never wrote on that medical report that I held a headway brain injury identity card. Neither did she write on that report that even in Somerset Police, particularly woman police constable Lana Snow, who was in that room with me, had in their possession a call of protection medical certificate, the very one issued by Professor Turnbull. So authority to question me or detain me, no reference was made whatsoever to the call of protection. Anyway, the picture you're seeing on the screen now is Detective Superintendent Claire Arms when she was at a Devon and Cornwall Police. Like I say, she subsequently moved on to Avon and Somerset, and 48 hours after this failed attempt to have me sectioned under the Mental Health Act, Arms was no longer in her post as head of operational support and was retransferred to the College of Policing. However, she's now surfaced as Assistant Chief Constable Claire Arms at Warwickshire Police. Anyway, I was in the room. I was taken back to the cell. Again, the carer was with me. The cell was guarded by police. And all of a sudden, these two paramedics arrived at my door, dressed in green overalls. I wasn't given their names, but I subsequently found out they were not paramedics. They were forensic mental health nurses. Their names, Bruce Matthews from Somerset NHS Foundation Trust and Ben McAvoy from Somerset NHS Foundation Trust. They were later joined by a third mental health nurse called Carly Reynolds from Somerset NHS. And over a period lasting almost 2 hours, I was goaded, provoked, smirked at. It was very intimidating. The photograph there is Claire Arms, who was in charge of custody while this was all going on. Anyway, I had received a book from a friend called Jimmy Johnson, who's ex-tank regiment, and Jimmy has spent probably more than 40 years now in prison, but he's become an acknowledged expert on PTSD. He's highly respected, and he had written a book called Break Off. And Break Off teaches you not to get involved in conflict, realize the consequences, and back off. And that is exactly what I did. I didn't rise to the bait and for being provoked. I mean, someone sent me a picture, and it describes it very well. There was I in a police custody cell, and it was like the Hydra from Greek mythology, all bearing down on me. But I backed off, and I wouldn't engage. And this Carly Reynolds, the mental health nurse, was insistent that I agreed to see a consultant psychiatrist. Why would a man with a brain injury card need to see a psychiatrist? If he was going to see anyone, it should be a consultant neuropsychiatrist. Anyway, after 2 hours, they left. I must also add one other point. Throughout this period, I was denied access to a solicitor, and again denied access to a doctor. And during part of this period, my carer was removed from me, and no appropriate adult was in attendance. So they left me all on my own. That's the Hydra, and that's what it felt like in this custody cell. And someone sent me that picture, who you know, but I won't tell you on air. And there I was, and there was the many-headed Hydra all attacking me. There's the 3 mental health nurses, and they wanted to get me away. They wanted me in a secure mental health unit. But I didn't realize what was going on, the extent of what was going on, and I did not understand fully who was behind it all. I now know all those details.
Because, I mean, basically, Len, it was so many years of, you asking for information, getting nowhere. Then all of a sudden, they're locking you up and intimidating you. Maybe that's because you were so close.
I got too close. I got too close. And, but when you go to a police station, you expect to go there. Okay, you get arrested, you get signed in. You should be allowed access to a doctor. I wasn't, but you should be allowed access to a solicitor. And they didn't allow me access to a solicitor. They threw those mental health nurses at me, goading me, provoking me, trying to get me to agree this, agree that, and I would not engage. But a lot of people may have lashed out or shouted, and that is exactly what these nurses were trying to get me to do. But I mean, thanks to Jimmy Johnson, I realized the consequences, and I didn't rise to the bait. So this needs to go into a lot more detail of how people with neurological conditions and all the general public are treated in the Avon and Somerset Police Custody Union. Even Thames Valley Police never did this to me. Anyway, the nurses left. But what I didn't know, and I've now read, that anyone goes into police custody in Avon and Somerset, their medical records are examined. But the difficulty is what these mental health nurses can write. And we'll go into that a little bit later. So anyway, the mental health nurses left. And I was, after a while, there was problems finding a solicitor. But what I didn't know what was going on upstairs. One of the person who oversaw my arrest came to my house, the search of my house and the investigation into me, held a prominent position in Avon and Somerset Freemasonry, which I wasn't aware of at the time. And the solicitor that had been chosen for me was not the duty solicitor. It was a solicitor who held grand rank within Avon and Somerset Freemasonry, and whose offices were based where the mental health nurses were located, in the same building. It was too coincidental. We have a picture of both the officer who oversaw my arrest and the solicitor, the Grand Officer of Somerset Freemasonry, attended the same Masonic lodge. But I did get an apology from the guy who oversaw my arrest, so I'm not going to name him at this present time. Maybe never. But it begs this whole question: the use of Freemasonry within the police service, and should individuals disclose whether or not their Masonic association. I know there's a lot going on at this present time regarding surrounding Freemasonry. Sonia Poulton, the journalist, has just done a rather interesting video, and at this present time I believe the Met Police are in negotiation with Grand Lodge as to all police officers in the Met disclosing whether they are Freemasons or not. But certainly in my case, it did have a significant involvement in the beginning. Anyway, the Grand Officer decided he wasn't going to get involved. Whether he was aware what had gone on or what was going on, and he didn't want to be pulled into it, I don't know. Anyway, he left. Then they got us another solicitor. Then after a number of hours, I was taken upstairs, taken to a control room, interview room, where I was interviewed. Now, the police have released that interview video to me, and it's been examined. And during the course of that interview, I talked about a number of things. I talked about paedophilia, child abuse, and I talked about individuals who had served in the armed forces or in other specialist units who had been raped whilst in care homes. I think you know all three of them, Andy. Even the name Andy Peacher was raised in the questioning. And anyway, what I suspect is that the mental health nurses were listening in remotely to this police interview. And what the police didn't expect were the mental health nurses to go off and have a field day attacking me. But importantly, they never expected me to get their records. Unknown to anyone, I was aware that I was being set up. I was receiving emails from people associated with His Honour Judge Simon Oliver, who, to give him his full title, the Worshipful Brother, His Honour Judge Simon Oliver. And in the interview, I talked quite a bit about Simon Oliver and what he'd been up to in the Thames Valley Police area. And I think I may have talked about the mothers as well, who have fled the country with their children, losing their homes, some of whom you may know. Anyway, eventually I got released under investigation. That investigation lasted a year. But however, the mental health nurses had a field day, Andy. They went into my medical records, and in fact, over 120 individuals associated, 120 entries into my medical records were made by people employed associated with Somerset NHS Foundation Trust. And they put everything on my medical records to try and get me sectioned. One of the most dangerous allegations was multiple threats against the public of anthrax attacks. Wow.
Wonder where they got that from.
Well, it's very interesting. A church called the Hope Community Church had, it was alleged that I emailed them with a threat of anthrax, mentioning anthrax. Well, we now know that His Honour Judge Simon Oliver's son was a director of that church. He's since retired. But where the allegation of multiple threats came from, fortunately for me, before this attack happened, I had been in contact with the National Crime Agency. Whenever I was receiving these emails, which I knew would be used against me, I would forward them to the National Crime Agency, and they kept pace all the time. I was also being safeguarded for 9 months. One of the officers who was safeguarding me retired. I think you may have met him, but we can't name him. He'd served in the police at or above the rank of chief super, and he'd served in counter-terrorism. So I had a lot of people around me, and I was never left alone day and night prior to this all unfolding. Anyway, the nurses went in. They accused me of everything. They accused me of falsifying my headway brain injury card, being completely delusional about the Court of Protection, delusional about organophosphate poisoning. They just seemed to know too much about me. But one interesting thing they knew, that they mentioned a thing about a diagnosis of narcissism in 2005. But where would they get hold of that from? And the only people who had access to me in 2005, I was subject to the Court of Protection, would be the government legal department. And I subsequently now know the instigation of this attack on me has its origins with the Treasury solicitor, Susan McGibbon. And she was briefed by His Honour Judge Simon Oliver to take action against me. But for some reason, all of her files have now been released. I don't have them at my home. I don't have them at all. But they are available. Others hold them. So it gave an incredible insight. And a lot of this all focuses around the website Judges Behaving Badly. Anyway, the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Merriam from Somerset NHS Foundation Trust, and another consultant psychiatrist there did not buy into these allegations. Neither did other doctors. I was attested and perfectly sane. I kept contact with the National Crime Agency while this was all going on. And when I became aware of the allegations made against me of multiple threats to attack the public of anthrax, I made contact with MI5, and they were fine, no problems. Oh, I was accused of everything, and the pension fraud, benefit fraud, assaulting my wife, assaulting my children. No one's to come near me unless they were in pairs. these mental health nurses absolutely trash me. But like I say, we've found it all. And that's the Worshipful Brother, His Honour Judge Simon Oliver, now a Provincial Grand Officer of Berkshire Freemasonry. And that man has held me since the 16th of, when was it, 16th of April 2012, under Part 7 of the Mental Health Act 1983. So he's held.
You've never been discharged, have you?
Well, what happened, Andy? One night, so he's held me, and I lost my house. I lost everything. One night, around about, when was it? About 2018. 3 men appeared at my house. One of them was the great nephew of Viscount Trenchard, the founder of the RAF. Wow, yeah, I know. And he, the great nephew, had been poisoned with toxic fumes like I had. It caused him brain damage. But I won't name him. And he's actually received a financial settlement now for negligence against the solicitor representing him. Anyway, there was 2 others, and one with an association with the Royal Navy and one other. Anyway, I was told to attend a conference, a lecture, and the lecture was given by Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Johns. It was done in Cavelli, North Devon, and I and the carer was given permission to go. We attended, and on arrival, I was met by another Air Chief Marshal, and we talked in confidence for about 15 minutes. Then we went into the lecture, and the doors were closed. I can't say what was said in that lecture theatre, but it was the founding of the RAF, and I put my hand up to her to ask a question, and Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Johns said, our Navy friend. I've never heard of Sir Richard Johns prior to that day, but he certainly knew who I was. Anyway, I asked my question, and that was it. Then after that, we had a dinner at Cavelli, and we all went home. Then 2 weeks later, I got a phone call, and it said, could a couple of farm mechanics pop in and bring me some apples in North Devon? I said yes, and these guys truly came, 2 of them, dressed in overalls. They spent about half an hour, maybe an hour at my home. Then they left. Then I got a phone call again a week later. Could they pop in again? They came back. They weren't a couple of farm mechanics, Andy. They had an association with the military and the security services, whereupon they wanted to see the Court of Protection certificates Oliver hold. And within 30 seconds, the man in charge said, Mr. Lawrence, he said, these Court of Protection certificates haven't got any court seals on. They've never been disclosed to the Court of Protection. And wow, that was quite a shock. Then it transpires His Honour Judge Simon Oliver conducted my Court of Protection case when he was not an authorised Court of Protection judge. We subsequently found out he had sat in another case where he purported to have been appointed the president of the Queen's Bench Division by Mr. Justice Singer. So it would be Sir Simon Oliver, when in fact Mr. Justice Leveson was the president of the Queen's Bench Division. Then my paths crossed with a number of women. They're called Hague Mothers. And what they've done, they've fled the United Kingdom from the UK family courts, and left their homes and taken their children abroad for safety. And one judge's name came up, His Honour Judge Simon Oliver. So that's what I was up against. Anyway, these guys left. But since this attack on me, I've now received a letter from the Court of Appeal that the judge that Oliver sent instructions to in the Court of Appeal, Master Mary Bancroft Rimmer, did not and never had held a Court of Protection medical certificate. So from going back when I first met Oliver on the 16th of April 2012, I've been held under the Mental Health Act and not released, which makes it quite an interesting scenario. So how many other people have been in my situation? Quite a few, but we're getting there. Anyway, there's a very good video, Andy, which your viewers may like to read. Can you see it?
Yeah.
It's called I Care a Lot by Rosalind Pike. And what it does, it actually describes what's going on in America and in this country, where people are being detained under the Mental Health Act, and all their rights are being taken away from them. And the barrister at the centre of this attack on me was Barrister Dominic Brazil on King's Bench Walk. Now, before my arrest, this detective inspector and detective superintendent were very much focused on Dominic Brazil, and they were seeking a letter from a Deputy High Court judge called Richard Ainley, which contained a full admission from Dominic Brazil that I'd been a patient subject to the Court of Protection when he'd basically had me certified without a medical and completely asset stripped me. That would have probably gone unnoticed, and I would have just been left. But the fact that I was subsequently found to have had brain injury from aerotoxic poisoning, not mental illness, has made it take a different dimension. And now that the Wall Street Journal has published it, and it's gone everywhere, New York Times, I think it's in the Mail, over here it's in the Telegraph. Airbus have announced that they're modifying their air conditioning units. So what's happened to me and many others, we weren't delusional, we weren't mentally ill, we were very much on the pulse. We got there. And I've got another letter here, Andy, from a man called George Bates, who worked for Boeing. This was written in 2007. It's an email, and Mr. Bates warns his company about the dangers of this contaminated toxic air on aircraft.
I mean, like I said before, even as a passenger, I can't prove it, but I got a headache, and I've known people who get headaches.
It's very hard. It's very hard.
What was in the cabin?
It's very hard to prove. Now, I believe, as far as I know, I am the only person who has had these brain tests on the NHS. They are available, but outside of the country. I think they're outside of the country. People go to Belgium or in America. And what had happened, I'd been admitted to Derriford Hospital in the southwest of England, in Plymouth, which is the regional neurological hospital, in 2012. And I was kept in a room for 3 days, 4 days, 3 nights. I was constantly videoed and my brain was wired up. And what they found was these alpha and theta waves in my brain, which were causing me to have neurological absences or not full awareness. So it wasn't absent-mindedness, it was neurological problems. That's not good for an airline pilot, Andy. When you're flying and you lose your concentration for seconds or maybe slightly longer. And but people will not get these tests. They're told they're mentally ill, it's a placebo effect, it's been covered up. But the Wall Street Journal has absolutely demolished that now. They've had the evidence. I think there was 4 journalists involved. They're very professional. I think if you subscribe to the New York, to the Washington, the paper, you can. It's £2 a month for a year. You can actually read the full history of it. So there's going to be a lot of people out there now who think it's not right. There's something wrong with me, and that could have occurred on an airplane. You don't have to be on an airplane every day. You can just go on one flight. It can occur to you. But the problem is, how do you get that diagnosis? I was never shown my diagnosis, but I know the DWP was sent a copy of it. So this took place in 2012. Only in 2000, I think it was 22, when I came under this attack, did the hospital release a copy to me to show what had happened. But like I say, here we are now, 2025. Yes, we've now sorted it out. We've worked out what's happened, all those involved. But what an incredible insight to our policing, Andy, and what actually goes on in these custody cells. And isn't it interesting, given the such serious allegation made against me about multiple threats against the public of anthrax, why would they delete the custody tapes, Andy? Why? Surely that would be needed if the investigation was going on for a year. But no, they did straight away.
I've been reading a few cases in America and Australia, and I don't know why. I mean, it's probably because of your case, but what it is, the airlines are now saying, look, yeah, okay, we'll put our hands up. There's a problem. We need to fix it. Whereas in your days, it was always delusional. We have to cover that up because that could cost us billions.
Well,
it's a lot of theft and a lot of problems. Before they admit there is a problem.
Well, the biggest problem was, okay, if it wasn't bad enough that I got poisoned and received this brain injury, it was the way I was treated by the government legal services in the United Kingdom, in England, and particularly by the official solicitor. The very people who should be protecting you were the very people involved in unlawfully holding me and participating in the theft of all my assets.
I think if you ever write a book on this, it should be called There's Something in the Air. Because that's it, really, isn't it? And not just in the cabin, but, there was something in the air in police stations, hospitals, everywhere. There's something wrong all the time.
Yeah, it's like Avon and Somerset. All the custody tapes have been deleted. I've got part of the body camera footage now. I've got the interview tape, but within that police custody centre, there was about 150 cameras and microphones within the building. Yeah, all the tapes are deleted and the sounding. However, I do know that they are secured on a secure digital network. So I'm pretty certain they can be recovered. But I'm getting a lot of obstruction from the data controller, Sarah Crew, at this present time in trying to get those tapes. But But I'm not the only person who is encountering problems with this particular force. Why some of the officers are very good. Unfortunately, there are others who are not. And
supposed to be there to protect.
Yeah, they're not.
You, even if you are a criminal, you know.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be there to protect and serve.
Professional standards, my experience, they are anything other than professional. And they're presently headed by Larissa Hunt. But all I've seemed to have encountered is civilian employees within professional standards who are not operational police officers. They're civilian assessors, particularly women. And why would you appoint one of them to investigate a counter-terrorism allegation? But they wanted rid of this, so they sent it to the Police and Crime Commissioner, Claire Moody, who appointed one of the individuals in her office, Sally Jones, to conduct a counter-terrorism allegation. And they don't know what to do now. But that allegation could have so easily got me detained under the Mental Health Act or got me a very long custodial sentence. And we know who wrote it, the name of the nurse, and she's got to say where she got this information from. And I think we'll find out that it came from Bridgewater Police Custody Centre. Anyway, what an update, Andy. Eh?
What an update. I mean, you only come on, you know, every now and again with little bits, but it's them little bits that are important for people to understand. But it's a big thing with toxic now, Aero syndrome.
Oh, that's out now. That's completely.
Yeah, that's really, really big now. So
off now. Yeah.
That'll never get hidden again. That one.
Right. But what's we now got to look at is how people are treated in police stations and police custody centres. And one of the sickening things involving Avon and Somerset Police, the evidence that would have cleared me, they withheld from me. They knew I hadn't done this, yet they withheld all that evidence from me. And now I've got it.
People are also going to be asking themselves, now it's in the public domain. Are you is this policeman a Freemason? Is this doctor? Is this judge, nurse, solicitor? Because I don't want anything to do with Freemasons. Surely you've got a right to ask that now.
I think now it was Oliver, Provincial Grand Officer of Berkshire Freemasonry. We know it came from him. Then the detective inspector, detective superintendent removed from their investigation, replace the investigating officer, worshipful master associated with a Masonic lodge, and the solicitor chosen for me, a provincial grand officer of Somerset Freemasonry, whose offices were located where the mental health nurses were located, where the mental health nurses Freemasonry. And
you definitely can't make that one up, eh?
Well, what I will do, I will ask them, and if they refuse to answer, then I'll apply what the police applied to me. Any question I didn't answer, they will take an adverse inference.
Wow.
But yes,
I do hope you get justice one day. I mean, justice as in someone has got to pay for this. I mean, I think it's got to be at least right to the root cause. Oliver's got to be the key one.
Oliver's
and Claire Arms.
Yeah, she is the key. She is one of the major points to this, and Oliver. The problem is,
of course, they're innocent until proven guilty.
He's been well looked after for a long time. There's a case involving a mother, a Hague mother, as I said, a mother who's fled the country with her children and left her homes and gone to live abroad outside UK jurisdiction. And Christopher Brooker, the journalist from the Telegraph and the journalist from Private Eye wrote about her and didn't name her, and he didn't name Oliver. And he said he was issued with the most draconian gagging order, he'd ever seen. He, I think the Telegraph were, and so were others who had knowledge to this. They can't keep going on protecting Oliver. Like I say, the entire government legal files have been sent to me. The official solicitor's files have been sent to me. They're not my home, the thing. And all that I've never been allowed to see, I now have. But what was interesting, all these judges in my case, there was Jones, there was Devlin, there was Fault Gang, Chowdhury, Yoxall. None of them were called a protection case. And Oliver, none of them held court of protection authorization when they were doing my cases. So what is the court of protection? The piece of papers you get issued with, just say this is a piece of it. They have no serial numbers. They have no embossment in the paper. They're just pieces of A4 paper, which are used with the word court of protection typed on. They go to the official solicitor's office, and in my case, Helen Mary Cliff, who is now the deputy official solicitor, doesn't disclose them to the court of protection and makes all the clinical and financial decisions on vulnerable people.
That's ridiculous.
Well, it is, and it needs sorting out, and it needs sorting out very quickly. Avon and Somerset have disclosed to me their instructions came from Thames Valley Police. Surprise, surprise, surprise. The evidence that would clear me from a lot of these allegations, the Chief Constable, John Campbell, and now Jason Hogg, have withheld from me. They wouldn't give me any data. So I had no evidence to disprove a lot of these allegations. Fortunately, the Crown Prosecution Service London intervened, where I'd been accused of assaulting my wife and children by mental health nurses. CPS London have written to me. They've checked all their historical records and with local offices, and they have no evidence or no record that I'd have ever assaulted my wife and children. Yeah, that's been part of my medical records by mental health nurses. Aren't they sickening, Andy? And Thames Valley Police wouldn't confirm that. They just left me.
Is Thames Valley part of Reading by any chance?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's probably why.
Yeah, they are. Well, to make it help or unhelpful, again in Freemasonry, a very senior member of Simon Oliver's lodge, the Berkshire Masters Lodge, served as a senior officer in the police service at the rank of Deputy Chief Constable, and during his career he served at a senior level within Thames Valley Police. It just doesn't ring right.
Oh, it's been a brilliant little hour, and these little hours always go quick.
Yeah, they do, don't they? But like I say, I'm just one person. This is happening. Lord Hardy said, you remember in 2012 or 13, tens of thousands of people were being detained under the Mental Health Act, and the safeguarding policies were not being followed, and in some cases willfully disobeyed. And here we are 12 years, 13 years later, and it still hasn't been addressed.
No, it's ridiculous. And well, we're getting somewhere with this government, with protests, and they are listening, but it's going to take forever to wake them up.
Well, I think it's gone too far now. People have had enough of politics. And,
it's a people's government we want now.
Well, but there seems to be a big problem with policing and their failures to protect. You go on any police website, it shows how wonderful they are. There are decent coppers, some who were Freemasons. I can remember coming under attack by the Met Police, and two guys rang me and said, "Mr. Lawrence, we've been asked to make your life very difficult. We don't intend to. You might like to know where these instructions have come from." I said, "Yes, please." And they said they came from the government legal department, the official solicitor's office. And he said, "Would you like to meet us for a coffee in Great Queen Street, adjacent to Freemasons Hall?" Whereupon I was given a load of files. Yeah, so there are good Freemasons. But I think, like I say, we're beginning to gather a lot more understanding of what's actually going on. But we can't protect vulnerable people, regardless of their race. You still see children being taken away, put into care.
People put into mental health hospitals.
Well, yeah,
there's got no political motives, but they're being put in there for no reason still. And then, I won't say they're sexually abused, but they're intimidated beyond.
Well, you look what's happened in the Norfolk area. Is it 2,000 deaths and all these things? The Nursing Midwifery Council have asked for the name of the mental health nurse. G4S won't give me their counsel, their barrister won't give me the name of the nurse, and so far nor will Avon and Somerset Police give me her name. And why she didn't put the details of that call of protection certificate and that headway brain injury card on that medical report. So had I been taken away and arrived at a psychiatric unit, the receiving doctor would have never known that I'd had brain injury or that I had a headway brain injury card. I would have been. Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm going to do one of these adverts now that you see on these programs. If you've been affected by anything you've heard on tonight's show, contact the Citizens Commission on Human Rights for Mental Health, cchr.org.uk.
Yeah, Brian Daniels. Brian Daniels was one of a number of people who were there for me all the time. So was the CCHR in America, Sandy, at Los Angeles. Anyway, back to you then.
There we go. Just dropped my computer off my lap. Yeah, no, it's horrendous what's going on, but will we see justice? I don't know. Anyway, can we wrap this up for tonight?
Yeah, I will come back to you.
And if anybody's